All right, moving on to Amit's question. He says, do you always need to keep saving 20 to 25% per the financial order of operations? Can I lower it or stop if I have the lump sum equivalent in retirement accounts already? This makes me want to know how he knows how much he needs for retirement too. But I want to know your thoughts.
So there's one of two things that Amit has probably done. He's probably either gone out to moneyguy.com/resources and downloaded our wealth multiplier, because the wealth multiplier tells you what lump sum you would need to have saved to hit a certain dollar figure, $1 million, $2 million, whatever the number is by retirement. Or perhaps Amit has done our Know Your Number course, which actually gets much more laser specific. You can go to learn.moneyguy.com and check out our Know Your Number course, because then it actually tells you what your number is to be able to retire. And so Amit's done that, and he has his number, and now he's backed into, okay, well, I have enough saved up. I'm probably going to hit that number without saving anymore. That is an idea. And there's a chance that could probably work out for you. It makes me a little nervous to think about just banking on that, because what you are then relying on is a rate of return assumption. If I have X dollars today and I earn, whatever the rate of return is, 6%, 8%, 10%, whatever number you're using, and I earn that rate of return, then I will be able to retire. Then I will be able to have financial independence. Well, you're putting a lot of weight specifically on that rate of return. Whereas if it doesn't happen, by no fault of your own, maybe you go through a great recession, and then maybe you go through a COVID, and then maybe you go through a fill in the blank of a thing that could happen. And by no fault of your own, just the timing of when you get to retirement, maybe that rate of return is not what you realized. You're sitting there thinking, geez, I gotta work longer. I like the idea of, I don't think it's crazy to back down your savings. So what I would do is I would, again, work through the Know Your Number course, figure out how much I have and how much I should save. But Brian, you said this with your wife way back when, that, hey, if we can kill it, if we can crush it in our 20s and we can save 25, 30%, I bet we're going to get ahead of the curve. Yep. And if we get ahead of the curve, then in our 40s, maybe we can take our foot off the pedal. Taking your foot off the pedal and stopping saving are two very different things.
Yeah, and I think for sure, the short answer is yes, but there's a huge asterisk next to it, because I think, let me go through a few of these things. I think stage of life matters, meaning that my conversation with my wife is that if we would be very disciplined when we were younger, and those maximizing exponential growth opportunities of your 20s and 30s, it's all back to the money multiplier that we're talking about, because that's where you can, $1 can turn into $88 when you're 20. $1 as a 30-year-old can turn into $23. These are huge multipliers. Meanwhile, you get up to where you're in your mid-40s. I mean, when I look at 45-year-old, $1 has potential to become $4.46. So that's a lot different than $88. So I think that this is a decision, if you are going to think that I'm going to pull back, you need to be in the stage of life that you're so mature in the process that you're not eating alive the wealth multiplier. You also have the critical mass behind you of assets that are working just as hard, maybe even harder now that you've reached this point of critical mass, harder than your back, your brain, and your hands can. I also think I want to tell you to be very careful of knowing what are your goals and what are your needs, and are they set? And what I mean by that is, if Amit, I don't know how old you are, but if you were a 25-year-old single individual, and you're only, because you're just so good at building wealth and saving, your footprint of expenses are like $15,000, $20,000 a year. But down the road, when you're 50, think about if you now have a spouse, you have multiple children. I bet your footprint isn't $15,000 to $20,000 a year anymore. So I tell you to make sure that your needs for life have been set, meaning you've got all the kids that are going to be brought into the world. You know what your living expenses are. That stuff needs to be firmed up, because if the concrete has not set on that, you might be surprised at how life can throw some crazy curveballs at you that change your assumptions and your variables on that. And then here's the other thing that I would tell you. I talk about a concept called forced scarcity. This is my own thing that I've talked about for my wealth builder for me, is as I've gotten pay raises, I've made more money, I forced myself to have this moment of scarcity by automatically sending my money to all these other pots. Part of that is also to control my consumption. Because remember, Part of wealth building is you want to make the good habits extremely easy. So that's what automatic wealth building makes, those always be buying opportunities there. But for scarcity makes the bad habits hard. And bad habits is just when there's money in your pocket and a little jingle, we always feel like we can go spend a little extra. Forced scarcity limits that. So I would caution you, just make sure that when you take the reins of saving off and investing off of yourself, that your lifestyle doesn't expand to a point now that you undermine the long-term success, because you once again can spend yourself out of success and wealth if you don't understand your why, if you don't understand how these things are all interconnected. You can get yourself in quite a situation. So just be careful that your lifestyle doesn't expand, that it actually undermines your ability to actually be at the financial independence point.